Hi everyone. Sorry about that delay. You can blame me entirely, but hope everything was okay. So for those who don't know, last week I talked about three of these books and two others. The other ones were Poison, Dark, and Drowning by Jessica Cluess and The Art of Starving by Sam J. Miller. And I was about halfway done Outrage, this book two of the Singular Menace, and I had just started. Well, actually, no. I said that I would start some of these books, and I have. I completed Outrage, and I've read the first 100 pages of Stealing Snow and the first two chapters of What Happened, and I thought that I would tell you about how they've both been so far. So in Outrage, which is the sequel to Uncaged, and the second book in the Singular Menace trilogy, let's just say that the main characters, they go through a lot to be extra careful, and they really don't pull any of their punches. They break into a very high security building in the middle of, I think it was New Mexico, and they end up sabotaging a party by getting to the CEO of Singular, like trapping him in a bathroom. They even tie a sheet around his neck. They don't hang him, I promise. Just they make it so that if he gets off of the toilet seat, then he will. But the point is, I found that I was missing a few things from the last book. In the last book, Shay ended up putting up a giant banner onto a big work building, explaining her friend Twist's immigration program, and I think she put up razor wire on the top to delay the authorities. And also, she and a ton of friends of hers, they were able to scale the fence surrounding the Hollywood billboard, and they managed to put Christmas lights all around it, spelling out a URL. And when they lit it up, it allowed people to go onto the site to look up and see what Singular was doing. In Outrage, they don't really do any of that creative and off the charts fun stuff. They're very expert at breaking into places, but also I found that there wasn't quite enough brutality on the other side to make it seem like I was completely rooting for Shay and Twist and Odin and Kate and Cruz and everyone and all those other names you probably haven't heard of. It's just I usually like it when another character ends up so badly beaten that we feel like these characters really do need to go down right away. There was that in Uncaged, not so much here compared to what we see our protagonists do. It was still a lot of fun, and I think I would give it a 2.5 out of 4. So. Next, I wanted to talk about Stealing Snow by Danielle Page. The book cover that I thought is just gorgeous and just I don't have another word for it because it is. I'm envious of this cover. And you see, some book covers have just this slippery glossiness, or others have a very dry matte cover. But Stealing Snow has the perfect combination of both of these. It feels great to hold, and so far I'm a Danielle Page fan after her Dorothy Must Die series, and I found that there were a few problems with this book right away. For starters, it's about a girl named Snow who is in this institution, or aka an insane asylum, called Whitaker. Like one of the other patients is named Wing. She's a girl who believes she can fly and keeps hurting herself by jumping off of cabinets, and one time she almost jumped out of a building. And also, it starts off with her and her best friend, perhaps boyfriend, Bale, and Bale ends up snapping her arm, and we also learn that Snow came to this institution when she was 6 years old, and she's now 17. And you see, she and her best friend tried to run through a window after they read that Alice could do it from Alice in Wonderland, and that it caused some scars on both of their heads, and it caused Snow to be sent to the institution. And I thought, hold up. For starters, Snow ends up thinking about Bale for, well, a solid year, And now that I've been through 100 pages, I can sort of see her affection for him. But at first, I thought, I think that after an entire year of being apart, you might not think of him every single day, especially after the pain he did of breaking your arm. But it was nice of you to understand that he was almost certainly possessed. But the other thing, the other most grave problem is that I don't think anyone, at least anyone in a sane country, would be sent to an insane asylum at 6 years old for something like that. That sounds like something I would do. It's like I would decide to touch the iron because I was curious, or I don't know. Let me think, like wing, jump off my bed and see if I could fly because I wanted to try. Like that's the sort of things that 6-year-olds do, and I think it was really not worth her being in an insane asylum for 11 years. Just thinking about that is painful. But anyway, Stealing Snow does not take place entirely at this asylum. What I've read so far, and this is like the first 100 pages, so it's not too much of a spoiler. Bale ends up kidnapped, and Snow ends up having these strange dreams about getting sucked down into a river and this strange glowing tree. And she realizes that her father is this king. I forget his name off the spot. I was only reading this last night, but apparently he chose the power he had over the land, which has been snowing for ever since Snow was born. And he didn't want to give up that power, and now let's just say we have an adventure in the land of Algid, and Stealing Snow is a retelling of the Snow Queen, aka Frozen. And well, I'm really excited for this adventure. Dorothy Must Die had a terrific setting and great writing to back it up and make me feel like it was a great setting. And I can see the same from Stealing Snow. In fact, when Snow has to jump off this cliff into this freezing water, she remembers she can't swim, and she almost drowns, and it takes her a while to recover after that. All the descriptions were very nice. And as for the first 50 or so pages of What Happened by Hillary Rodham Clinton, I thought, woo, my. Like, let's see. She gives us some great quotes by some famous people. Like one of them was, "Things can be hard. The hard is what makes them special. If it were easy, everyone would do it." And another one was, "Which does not kill me makes me stronger." And she quoted the original person of that and put in brackets Anne Kelly Clarkson. And as a fan of Strange Magic, I loved reading that. And also, as we read this, we realize Hillary Clinton is not just a politician that has things that we may agree or disagree with. She's a mother, a wife, and a grandmother. And it even at the first 2 chapters show a good side about losing the election. She realizes that even though the first month was just torture and she feels like she let everybody down, she is able to sleep in, and she's able to attend school plays with her children, and she's able to go for walks in the park and decide, even though she wanted to do so much for the good of the country, she's tried to make the best of a bad situation. She also rants, but not completely like a full-on out "I declare war on you" sort of rant, about how she was watching the news and she saw about how Trump had employed White House staff that he kept saying she was the stooge of, and when she heard that Steve Bannon was sent to the White House, like she almost threw the remote at the screen. And she talks about what it was like the day of Trump's inauguration on January 20th. I'm sure that it's January 20th. And Hillary does a very good job of putting us in her shoes, and it makes us feel fear at a rejection. And she's also kind of brutally honest in some parts. Like for the first little while, she had to feign some fake smiles and some tight nods, and there was some sort of of woman that forced her daughter to walk up to her at a restaurant because to apologize because she didn't vote. And what Hillary was thinking was she wanted to say to this girl, how could you not vote at a time where our country really most needed it? You didn't. You decided not to vote, and you expect me to make you feel better? Like that was how cranky she was. She even admitted that she wasn't the best person to be around for a while. And I just thought, just Hillary Clinton is more than a politician. She's a person, and so far what happened is a great example of that. Okay, so let me think. Let's make sure that we have enough time for this. I wanted to talk to you a bit about the Sly Cooper franchise, and for the video game part. Now, this is a fairly old and fairly it's an ongoing video game series that was first released for the PS2. And it has from Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, a game released in 2002, from Sly 2 Band of Thieves in 2004, Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves in 2005, and I was really impressed that it only took 1 year between Sly 2 and Sly 3 to release Sly 3, because usually video games take like maybe 2 or 3, even 4 years to in between. And then in 13, they finally released a spin-off called Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, aka Sly 4 Thieves in Time. This series has everything I really like in a video game, not just decent stories all around, but iffy and fun. Sly is a very likable thief that comes from a long line of master thieves. This is a talking animal sort of video game series, but it's not that goofy in that way. It's like the underworld of talking animal games that still has good characters. Sly always wears this blue beret and has a special golden cane that is used to be his father's. And you see, Sly's father taught him all about becoming a master thief like he did, about the big long family business. But one day in the Thievius Raccoonus, when Sly was like a big baby, a gang called the Fiendish Five broke in and killed Sly's father and made off with several portions of the book. And Sly was put in an orphanage where he met his long best friends Bentley and Murray, whose first heist was stealing the cookie jar off the pantry. And Bentley is I'm the best at playing Bentley's voice. He's a great whiz kid and whiz turtle. He's always great at strange language about ASCII and binary codes, and binary coded ASCII is actually the same thing. That's how clueless I am, but yeah, he's the brains. And then we have the brawn, a hippopotamus named Murray, who's always a lot of fun. And though there's not much of him in the first game, in the second and third games we change him to the Murray, and he wears this very iconic. Let me think. It's like a mix between a glove and a mask. And there's also Sly's love interest, who's also an Interpol officer named Carmelita, which we'll talk about next week, I hope. So you see, the first game, I'm stuttering way too much. The first game was about Sly trying to recapture his old book from the Fiendish Five. Sly 2 Band of Thieves has a more complex story in that the first one was all about Sly getting to these special areas across the world and beating out the antagonist each and every time of their territory. In Sly 2, some antagonists may show up again for another round, and the gang is all in this time, and they all have to try to steal back these clockwork parts, which was the main antagonist of the first one, to prevent clockwork from being rebuilt. And Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves was, I think, the most personal of the Sly Cooper games. One where Sly is trying to open this big vault that's protected by, well, you could say the Bentley of his dad's old group, and and in Thieves in Time was the very first one I played, and I guess it's just because it was the one I had access to first. And apart from, a character that I felt had completely redid herself unnecessarily, as well as let me think, an antagonist who during their final battle reuses the same line all over and over again due to lazy coding. Apart from that, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time is pretty much just spectacular. All of these games are pretty spectacular, and they also really test yourself as a video gamer. They might not sound very hard, but the Thievius Raccoonus is by far the hardest, especially the racing levels, where it's like a very early version of Mario Kart at 200cc, and you have to basically find these batteries that give you a boost up as you race these three other, you could say, monkeys again versus you as Murray. But yet these cars, they go pretty much just as fast as you, and they start off in front of you, and you have to really become a boss at turning and knowing when to brake in order to do the turn properly, because you could be at this for hours. And the way that the game works is you need to finish every level of each universe and collect each key before you can go any further. And even at the final battle, there's even a car one where you have to try to smash 50 computers while there are lava monsters coming from every direction that are trying to smash the computers too. And it might even be a matter of luck. Sly 2 Band of Thieves and Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves are nowhere near as hard from my personal experience, but they are all super fun. They have colorful characters. They have good stories for a change, which is the twist up in any video game these days. And I first found out about the Sly Cooper movies when there was a trailer that was released for a movie. It was released back in January of 2014. It was basically a teaser trailer about the gang racing against time to the donut shop, and before it closed, and when it did, they had to steal some. And it's scheduled to be released for 2016, and it didn't because of constant delays. And the movie Ratchet and Clank, which kind of bombed at the box office, might have something to do with it. But it's really annoying how they still haven't made another video game, and they've kept doing delays, and it can take like 4 years to do an animated movie, and they're still in production mode. I heard that it's going to be like a redoing of the first game. I'm excited for that. And with that, that's all what the Sly Cooper franchise is all about. But let me tell you quickly what I wanted to do with you for next week. You see, remember Carmelita, the cop that I told you about? Well, she's in all of the video games, but for each one, she's gotten a different voice actress, and you can really tell. Even her accent might change from let me see, Hispanic to American. It can be kind of strange sometimes, but I think that all of the Carmelitas have a different personality because of their voices, even though they're both cops trying to capture Sly. And I think that it would be fun to really show you the voices and see which one you like the most. So with that, we're going to take a short break, and then I'm going to be talking about the one and only Pokemon anime. And boy, will I have a lot to say. Okay, see you in a bit. Hey everyone, we're back. So I have my laptop open for this because sometimes my thoughts can scatter, and I have a lot to say, so I don't want to distract myself. So if I'd have to give one word to the Pokemon show, it might be overmilked. And that doesn't necessarily mean bad for the entire show, I promise. So I started watching glimpses of the Pokemon TV show in 2006 when Ash Ketchum was in the Battle Frontier. And I watched every Frontier Brain Battle except for the first one, Noland, which I think was in the last season beforehand. And the reason I think that is because all the other Frontier Brains in the theme song were all shaded over except for Nolan, but yeah, that's just my estimation. And I became enough of a fan because the battles were fun enough, and I had gotten, I think, my first Pokemon game around that time, or actually I think it was like a year earlier, but I finally got interested in the show when I remember the first Frontier Brain one I saw was Lucy, and I never really forgot how it went down. And I basically started watching the show when Veronica Taylor, the original voice of Ash, and all the other actors were replaced by others because of some sort of contract and a new company and all that. Apparently, this new company that was making the show, at least it's English dubbed, wanted less money and as a result fired all of its voice actors and replaced them with new ones. And that was about the time I coincidentally started watching the show. So, and I watched all of Diamond and Pearl, aka Sinnoh, and then gave up after Black and White, or Unova. After Unova, I gave up on both the anime and the video games, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain where I'm coming from. So, everyone by now knows that the Pokemon anime has been stretched to this point 7 regions, around 20 seasons, 1 per year. There's Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, and Alola. And Sinnoh was the one I was most attached to, just because it was around the time where I watched it. Just, yeah, if it had showed on TV earlier as a kid, maybe I would have gotten excited for it in Johto, but I guess we'll never know. And I think the best thing about the Diamond and Pearl series was its rivals. Its antagonists somewhat fine. I mean, first there was Team Rocket, then Team Aqua and Magma and Hoenn, which I became familiar with in the video game Pokemon Emerald. And then there's Team Galactic. Oh, and Pokemon Hunter J. I think that Team Galactic and Pokemon Hunter J, they were great antagonists, maybe even the best ones in terms of doing what they wanted to do. But trust me when I say the Diamond and Pearl series is a very long one. Like, it takes Ash forever to get just 2 badges out of his 8. But and yeah, Team Galactic only appears just every once in a while until its final showdown in one of the final Diamond and Pearl seasons. But anyway, whenever those antagonists were in the spotlight, the anime was great. And what I meant by rivals was Ash's rival Paul. And many Pokemon fans agree with me that he was the best one out of all of them. There was Gary Oak, and there was Trip from Unova, and Alon from X and Y. But Paul is the best rival in my opinion, because he kept calling Ash's training methods and himself pathetic, and he threw his Pokemon the same insults, and Ash kept losing to Paul. And during Diamond and Pearl, he had a personal crisis of if he was the proper trainer for his Pokemon, and if the way he was training his Pokemon was correct, if he wanted to ever become a Pokemon master, and if he wanted his Pokemon to win. And so when Ash and Paul battled it out in the Sinnoh League, it was, I think, the very best sort of Pokemon battle in its entire history. I haven't seen every battle, so I could be a bit biased, but from what I've heard, like, everyone agrees that the final Infernape versus Electivire brawl is just spectacular. I wish that the series could have just ended on that note, but it didn't. So there's also Dawn's rivals, the main female protagonist of Diamond and Pearl. There's Kenny, Nando, Ursula, and Zoe. You see, Kenny is Dawn's best friend and knows a lot of embarrassing stories about her. And Nando manages to compete in both contests and gym battles, and doing very well at both. Ursula is a snarky yet talented coordinator that, with surprises, always up her sleeve. And Zoe is a rival that is in a way Dawn's shadow ever since she beat Dawn in her first contest, seemingly always a step ahead of Dawn. And yet, unlike Ash and Paul, they are good enough friends that share contest advice and help the other out occasionally. I think that Zoe and Paul are the most unforgettable sort of rivals. And May from the Hoenn series also had great rivals in Harley and Drew from the minimal amount I've seen. I guess if I was born a few years younger, as I said, I'd be going in as much detail for those rivals and those characters as I am for Diamond and Pearl. So what about the theme songs? Well, you see, I have a mixed relationship with the theme songs. I know a lot of people love Japanese anime, and I watch some Japanese anime, not much, and I I watched the Pokemon anime in English as an 11-year-old. And I've listened to a few of the openings in Japanese, and even though I don't speak a lick of the language, other than the fact I know there are no L's in Japanese, they're still pretty nice. The English openings, well, some of them are good, some of them are so-so, and others are cringy. For instance, this didn't bother me when I was 9 years old, but the first Diamond and Pearl theme says, "New rivals as you fight for survival." While the survival part has Dawn in a dress, bringing out her Baneri and Piplup, and I thought, they're fighting for survival, how exactly? And except for the also cringy "we can change the world Pokemon" part, the rest of the opening holds up if you ask me. But you see, the other openings also have lyrics that say stuff like, "Nothing can stop you, we will win the battle, there's nothing you can't do because you've got the power inside of you." Not only are these cheesily optimistic for anyone above elementary school, in my opinion, but if the show creators believed half of what they say in the lyrics, Ash would have won a league by now, and we'd see more victories in the secondary characters. It's just shameful, really. Thankfully, there are some very nice ones, specifically the very first three. And in fact, I watched a video that said that all Japanese openings according to WatchMojo.com, out of all of them, the Pokemon English dubbed theme song was the best one. And I kind of agree, but I think that the XY theme song just might be even better, which is an updated rendition of the song. I had just quit watching the series, and when I heard X and Y, I thought maybe they care more all of a sudden. I haven't actually seen that one. I now see there's might not be a point, and I'll explain why in a moment. So, you see, this Pokemon world, it just rips out the hearts of fans for the money without realizing they are doing so. You've seen one region of Pokemon, you've seen them all. Like, now only diehard fans remember Ash saw Ho-Oh in the first episode. There was a side story where Ash, Brock, and Dawn shared a connection with the Lake Trio, Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit. Dawn starts off as a contest coordinator where, after losing 2 consecutive contests, feels like she's maybe just keeping Ash from his dreams, and maybe we'll never have a chance at the grand festival. And in X and Y, there's even what could be the purest relationship. Ash and his Greninja, actually, instead of Pikachu, which is the final evolution of the Kalos water type starter. And the reason I think that's pure is because, you see, they find out that the two of them share a bond that has been passed down in Kalos legends, once every year. And Ash and his Chimchar from Diamond and Pearl, which I have more of a connection with because it was in Diamond and Pearl instead of the one that I haven't seen yet. You see, Chimchar was originally Paul's, and Paul let him go when he decided he wasn't good enough. And we've seen a few of Paul's Pokemon decide to well, actually, the Pokemon didn't decide, Paul decided to leave them, but Ash decided Chimchar was strong enough, or even if Chimchar wasn't that strong, Ash would have taken him in because he feels every Pokemon can be as strong as your favorite Pokemon. Let's put it that way. And Chimchar turns into Infernape, and Ash proves Paul, and Infernape proves Paul correct. Proves Paul wrong. Sorry. And each and every one of these stories, even the Greninja one, they're all good. They're all great, actually. And then what do the creators do? They throw them away. Like, we never see Ash and the Lake Trio again. And you see, after Ash finally beats Paul and proves himself right, there's a fake out in that Ash is in the semifinals and battles a strange character that we see in the midst of the Sinnoh League with a strange Darkrai, a legendary Pokemon no less. And Tobias, this character, just takes Ash out with just 2 of his Pokemon out of his entire team of 6. I thought, are you kidding me? Ash did like one of the best battles in existence, and it's been 4 regions. We really feel like he has really progressed as a person, and he finally made it to the top 4 rather than losing in the top 8, which was what happened for the last 2 regions. And then in this, like, just out of the blue, there's a strange trainer that just wipes away everything we saw for the last 4 years. And also, I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end of the Grand Festival, but ever since I've seen what happens at the end of the Grand Festival, I keep thinking in my mind, if I was a judge, because Pokemon contests are not just critiqued for how well their moves can be punched or kicked, or thrown, but also how dazzling they look. I would have kept thinking. I would have kept thinking up excuses for why there could have been different ways, so the other girl could have won, but yeah, can you understand how after Dawn goes through a personal dilemma and we're with her more of the time, and she has to grow up in a shadow of another coordinator, that she just deserves a victory? Like, it's also kind of obnoxious that there's a new Pokemon movie that's supposed to be a return to the origins. I think it's out now. It should be out now, and then they decided not to bring back the original voice actress. Like, apparently Ash is Veronica Taylor's favorite role ever. Like, you could look her up and saying Pikachu used Thunderbolt at this, I think it might have been Comic-Con, but yeah, Veronica was asked to say Pikachu used Thunderbolt. It caused a big cheer from the audience. She said she really missed Ash. She said it felt really good to do his voice again just for that one moment. And I just felt like if it was tracing back to Ash's Kanto origins, then wouldn't it have been smart to let her in? I mean, Veronica Taylor was in Yu-Gi-Oh, and so was Sarah Nadasheni, which is the current Ash. Like, they work together on Yu-Gi-Oh. Can't she just come back? I don't know what that would actually do to Sarah, but just as a Pokemon fan and as someone who's interested in all of this, I felt like it would have been such a real treat. And with 7 regions and over 800 Pokemon, it seems like finally the show's creators are running out of room in their database for new Pokemon. If they keep this up, we'll have 2,000 Pokemon. Our amount of years after Christ died wouldn't have as much Pokemon, as much in terms of Pokemon. You know what I was talking about. And I know this is not entirely the OWN show's fault for all of this. Pokemon is a multi-billion-dollar industry now, and by the time Hoenn, the 3rd region, ended, the video games where you collect 8 badges and then compete in the league became a solid tradition that proved worked. And I'm a big fan of the video games too, and I'm a fan of Diamond and Pearl, so displaying the same thing in the anime made sense. So if Ash won a league, then he'd perchance become the Pokemon master that he's been dreaming about, and he wouldn't travel to a new region, and therefore no more new Pokemon, no more new video games, and yeah, no new regions, and that would have made everything eventually repetitive, and then the business would have probably plummeted, and then lots of people who have jobs with this market would lose them. It's almost like taking a medication that is bad for you, but you require more as you get older. If you stop it, then disaster. If you keep taking it, then disaster. And wow, I've been talking about the Pokemon universe in a grim way. Maybe I just never forgave when Ash lost to Tobias in the Diamond and Pearl the way he did, and maybe I just never forgave when Dawn lost in the finals of the Grand Festival where she was so close. I still think there are some amusing moments in the Pokemon anime, and I still think the video games rock. In fact, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky is my favorite video game of all time, and I'm going to be talking about it in a future episode. For now, I've had a long history with the Pokemon world, so it makes sense I'd have a lot to say. You probably have something you can talk to everyone for 20 minutes for, too. And, let's see, what else is there? Oh, and I also think about the irony about it all, about how much it's over milked. Because, you see, I think I've said this on the show about 3 times already, and I'm sorry, but The Last Airbender and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows are 2 of my favorite films ever, and yet they were kind of sabotaged by Hollywood. You see, The Last Airbender made $150 million more than its budget, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows around around that same amount, but The Last Airbender didn't get good reviews at all, and Out of the Shadows didn't paled in comparison to its predecessor in terms of box office hits, and so far there has been no plans for either sequels. And what makes me mad is that the Pokemon world can keep going and just ripping out our hearts for the Greninja plot and everything, but also the fact that there are now 5 Transformers movies. I love the first 2 Transformers movies and really like the third one too. I haven't seen the 5th one yet. I didn't care for the 4th, but my point is, if we can have 5 Transformers movies and we can have 20 Pokemon seasons and 7 Pokemon regions, then I think that every entertainment franchise in the world deserves to be completed.